Good morning and welcome to the special council meeting regarding the 2026 budget, and we'll call the meeting to order at 9:01 on Thursday, December 11th. We'll begin with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Cabmonaghan is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to First Nations for their care for and teachings about these lands. May we honor these teachings. I'll look to council for approval of the agenda for today's meeting. Moved by Councilor Burns, second by Councilor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, there is no closed session. So we'll begin with a series of presentations, the first being from MPEC, Ms. Sarah Groves. Welcome.
Good morning. Hope you all are well. My name is Sarah Groves, and I'm the account manager at the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, and I'm responsible for managing the relationships with all of the municipalities within the County of Peterborough, County of Haliburton, and the City of Peterborough and City of Kawartha Lakes. And I'm no stranger to you. I'm back, I think, every year I present. So there hasn't been a lot of change in the information, but of course, it's always good to get out, connect with you, and of course, provide the information to the property owners across your township. So at MPAC, we are Ontario's property experts. Our job is to assess and classify more than 5.7 million properties across the province. And these properties are worth a combined value of $3.2 trillion. Every municipality uses MPAC's assessments to make informed decisions about their community, including the distribution of property taxes. There are 4 key players in the Ontario property assessment system, and all have a different role and interest in the process. The provincial government, specifically the Ministry of Finance, is responsible for setting assessment and taxation legislation and policies. They also determine the education property tax rate. There's also an independent body that adjudicates appeals of MPAC's assessed values. This is called the ARB, or the Assessment Review Board. This also falls under the jurisdiction of the province. MPAC is an independent, not-for-profit corporation funded by Ontario municipalities, and our role is to accurately assess and classify all properties within Ontario. We do this in compliance with the Assessment Act and regulations that are set by the Government of Ontario. We are accountable to the province, to municipalities, and property taxpayers of Ontario through a board of directors that is comprised of provincial, municipal, and taxpayer representatives appointed by the Minister of Finance. Municipalities determine your budget requirements, you set the tax rates, and you collect property taxes to pay for your municipal services, things like police, fire, roads, recreation, among many others. Municipalities use MPAC's assessments and the established tax rates to distribute their tax requirement to property owners and ratepayers. And finally, the property owners, who pay the property tax bill and help set market value through ongoing property purchases and sales. So as you can imagine, maintaining Ontario's property database is very important. Property data is continuously updated so that municipal records are accurate when our municipal stakeholders are making important tax decisions. Maintaining Ontario's property database includes inspecting and assessing all new construction, additions, and renovations promptly. We respond to property owner inquiries, and we work with them to help them understand their property assessment. We also support municipalities through ongoing meetings. We have regular quarterly meetings with your finance team as well, and regular communication with building and planning as well. We also have a platform that we provide to municipal staff that's called Municipal Connect, and it's essentially a platform that provides all of the assessment-related information that's needed. We also have statutory duties, such as handling requests for reconsideration when someone disagrees with their assessment, and we maintain people data by tracking school support for all of the 5.7 million properties in Ontario. Monitoring the market and assessing newly built and renovated properties are things we do every day in order to keep our data current. We also periodically update every single property assessment in Ontario based on the same legislated valuation date, and we call this an assessment update or a reassessment. We share the government's interest in ensuring the accuracy, transparency, and fairness of property assessments, and we're ready to contribute our assessment expertise, and experience to the review. While MPAC is not responsible for setting tax rates or collecting property taxes, we welcome the opportunity to work with the province to ensure the property assessment process is optimal for customers, both property owners and municipalities. Regular revaluation of properties ensures that assessments stay up to date and similar properties of similar value in the same municipality pay similar property taxes. Provincial legislation determines when MPAC conducts province-wide assessment updates, and they set the valuation date for each update cycle. The reassessment that was scheduled to occur in 2020 was postponed, and as a result, property assessments continue to be based on the legislated valuation date of January 1st, 2016. So Ontario's, back to the next one, please. Ontario's property tax system is based on everyone paying their, back to the CBA slide. Sorry, that last one had lots of notes on it. So Ontario's property tax base, or the system, is based on everyone paying their portion of what it costs to deliver community services. To do this, all properties are assigned a value at a common valuation date, and we call this the current value assessment, or CVA. This is the price a property might reasonably be expected to sell for if sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer after appropriate time and exposure on an open market. So as mentioned, the current legislated date is January 1st, 2016. So the provincial system review was announced last year by the provincial government. So as the provincial government continues this property and assessment tax system review, there will be a postponement. So this review allows us to affirm the importance of regular assessments, information exchange for our municipal partners, and building enhanced services and products that meet the evolving needs of all those that we serve. So let's briefly talk about valuation. In Ontario, there are 3 industry-wide approaches to value. The first of these approaches is the direct comparison approach and is used primarily for residential properties. With this approach, we analyze the sales of comparable properties that were sold for a similar or identical use as the property to be valued. There is also the income approach used for properties like office buildings, and we have the cost approach for properties such as mini warehousing and general purpose industrial properties. No matter what valuation approach we use, the selection of comparable sales transactions serves as the foundation for establishing our property assessments. And when we're looking at the valuation of a residential home, these are the 5 factors that account for 85% of a typical home's value. There are over 200 factors that come into play, but these are the top 5. So the age of the property, which may get adjusted if there's been any major renovations or additions that have occurred. We look at the location, the quality of construction of the home, the exterior square footage, and the lot dimensions. So after we assess a property or change an assessment, a property assessment notice is mailed to property owners. Sometimes property owners disagree with their assessed value, and they might connect with you to let you know that they disagree with the assessment. But it's important to remember that property assessments don't equate to taxation. If you get an inquiry, you can help us by asking the property owner a few questions. And the number one we always ask is, could you have sold your property for the assessed value as of January 1st, 2016, because that is the current valuation date. We also recommend that property owners take a look at About My Property, which is an online tool where property owners can review information that we have on file. And it includes all of the details about square footage, lot information, all of those details are on there. If a property owner takes a look at About My Property, they can compare it also against other similar properties within the municipality. Most people know that their house is similar to Bob Smith down the street, so they might take a look at his to see whether it is comparable information and a comparable assessed value. If a property owner still disagrees with their assessment, they can file a request for reconsideration directly through About My Property, and we'll review their property for free of charge. We just want it to be accurate and equitable. So there is also the ability, if they disagree with their request for reconsideration, to further appeal with the Assessment Review Board that I mentioned previously as well. So the fastest way for us to review their property is for filing a request for reconsideration through About My Property. You can also do that through the MPAC website, and we'll also accept paper copies as well. Deadlines to file a request for reconsideration are on the assessment notices that property owners get mailed. And the deadline for filing a request for reconsideration for the 2026 taxation year is March 31st of 2026. So let's spend a moment to address the relationship between property taxes and assessment. Assessments distribute taxes. They do not determine the taxes paid. So when a province-wide update occurs, the most important factor is not how much the assessed value of a property has changed, but rather how the assessed value has changed relative to the average change in the class within the community. So the concept is further explained in the next slide, which we are going to show. So you may have watched this video before. It's available on our YouTube site if you'd like to rewatch it later as well.
Property taxes are based on your home's value. What you might not know is that an increase in your home's value doesn't necessarily mean your taxes will go up. To explain, let's take a look at how your property taxes are calculated. Imagine there's a town that only has 3 homes, and they're each worth a different amount. The total cost to provide all of the town's services is $1,200. This is collected through property taxes. Each homeowner pays property taxes based on their home's assessed value. So we take the total cost of services and divide it by the total property value. This tax rate is applied to all the houses to get enough money to pay for the town's services. Each homeowner pays according to the assessed value of their home, and every 4 years, the houses are reassessed. Let's say all 3 properties have gone up equally in value. The total cost of services hasn't changed, but the total property value has increased. When this happens, there will be a decrease in the tax rate. Now, when we apply that new rate on all the homes, everyone still pays the same. Now, let's say another 4 years has gone by, and these homes are reassessed. During this time, the house on the right gains more market value than the other 2. The total value of all the homes have increased, which means the town has to calculate a new tax rate. With this new tax rate, the first 2 homes will actually pay less than the home on the right that was reassessed at a higher value. Since the cost of services hasn't changed, the town doesn't need to collect more property taxes on the whole. However, since property taxes are based on a home's value, taxes for each individual home could potentially go up or down based on the rest of the homes. So, what happens when the cost to provide services goes up? Well, it means more property taxes need to be collected from every home and a new tax rate is calculated. To get the new rate, we take that amount that the town now needs and divide it by all of the property values. The new rate is applied to all the homes, and now everyone has to pay the new tax amount to continue to fund the town's services. So, let's review. 1. Property taxes are based on the assessed value of a home. If all assessments go up equally, everyone pays the same. 2. If all assessments do not go up equally, there's a redistribution of the tax. 3. If the town's cost to provide services increases, the municipality may choose to increase the tax rate. When this happens, everyone pays their share of that increase. And that explains the relationship between property value and property taxes.
That video is linked on our YouTube site, so at any time, property owners can go in and take a look at that, and you're welcome to share that and use that in your conversations with property owners as well. That's okay. Temperamental this morning. Perfect. Nope, all good. So our focus is always on building awareness about property assessment and taxation and MPAC's role in that process. So we understand that property assessment can be complex, and we hear that from both municipalities and property owners. So that's why we've been communicating with property owners and Ontarians more than ever to help them understand the property assessment and taxation system, learn more about who we are, and easily find the information and resources that they need. From social media campaigns and educational videos to our first-time homeowners hub, where property owners can access information to help them navigate the property assessment and taxation system. We continue to focus our efforts on providing helpful and easy to understand resources directly to property owners and to municipalities to help you answer property owner questions. So as I wrap up today, I want to thank you for having me here. A big part of MPAC's commitment to service is staying connected with municipalities. So if not already, I'd like to point your attention to the In Touch newsletter, which is a monthly municipal e-newsletter, which can be done through mpac.ca, and you can subscribe there. So if you're looking for additional property information, logging into About My Property is a great place to start. Property owners can get access, their access key from their property assessment notice, or call our customer contact center, and we'd be happy to assist you. Thanks again for having me today.
Thank you for that presentation, Sarah. Questions, members of council, with regards to the presentation about impact? Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair, the one thing that jumps out at me all the time is, yes, the property values went up unequally. Then the one person with the higher value is going to pay a bigger tax, but didn't draw any more from the community, didn't cause any more costs to the community. So therefore, the individual that spends money, betters his value, actually gets punished without really causing a cost. And I know it's not yours so much, it's at our end, but that's the glaring fact. But what I was going to ask you, when you're talking about doing updates constantly, most of them are just comparison adjustments, right? What would be the percentage you would guess that you would actually physically go and take a look at a property to say, oh, this is the new assessed value?
Thank you for that question, through you, Mayor. So we completed over 300,000 building permits, I think, this year. Just within your township, we closed off 165 permits. And of those 165 permits, we saw a 2% increase over your assessment base, or approximately $36 million over last year. So we are out visiting properties and doing those on-site inspections to capture any changes.
Thanks, Sarah. Other questions? Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Chair, to Sarah, and I know you're anticipating the question, so when's the new baseline gonna be?
Thank you for that question, through you, Mayor. At this time, we do not have a date. We are still waiting for the property assessment and taxation system review to be completed. And I would expect, as that wraps up, then we would have an announcement from the provincial government.
Thank you. Follow-up question, Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair, I'm just curious, with your inspecting all these new projects, enhancements or whatever, would you have a feel for how many of the housing developments going on in the province right now that aren't going to be completed, like new projects that have stalled, or they basically pulled the pin on the projects, more so high rises up in Toronto? Do you have any information, or do you track that at all?
Thank you for that question, through you, Mayor. Yes, we track all of that information. I'm responsible for this area, so I'm more in tune with like the development around the municipal office and across our county. But we do track that information. We track registrations for some of those large condo developments as well.
Councilor Nacho.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, and nice having you back again. Just follow up to Deputy Mayor Huntley's question. So you said that the base rate will be determined after the review, but you didn't state when the review is scheduled to be conducted. Is this a 2026 thing, or it's just sometime in the future? Thanks.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. At this time, the review is ongoing. I don't know when it's expected to be complete. I know that we're towards the latter part of the review, but at this time I don't have a completion date, and I don't know the details of what's been discussed.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay. With no other questions, we just need a motion to receive the presentation. Thank you. Moved by Councilor Nacho, second by Councilor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for joining us again. Next on the docket is the delegate, with the presentation from Carla with regards to the Monaghan Public Library Board budget requests. Carla.
Good morning. Next slide. It has been a wonderful, busy year at the library. I put a few highlights here. I was trying to think which ones are most important to highlight verbally, but all of them are very important to us. We applied for and received a third seniors community grant. We hosted our first card event with the Early On Center. It was very cute. We had about 10 little ones come up and get cards. We had a new storytime outreach with Springdale Manor. We continue our adult storytime in partnership with Caris Homes, formerly Christian Horizons. That sees 25 to 30 residents of Christian Horizon homes and their caregivers coming to the Bruce Johnston branch on a Tuesday morning. It's a hoppin' place when they're there. We continue to take part in the Easter event at Centennial Place. We've been doing that now for probably about 7 years. We acquired new furniture for the Bruce Johnston branch to house our growing craft supply library. We celebrated the retirement of a longtime staff member. As you know, the renovations at the Old Millbrook School, including the repainting of the main library room, have been happening since the late summer. We provided a placement space for 2 Mohawk College students in the library technician program. We took part in the BIA Fall Festival, provided stories and crafts for the Halloween event at the CMCC, and just last week hosted our annual November grade 3 student visit with the students from the Millbrook South Cavan School. Every grade 3 student is offered the opportunity to get a card with the library. So that's always a fun time when they come. Something that I didn't put on is we've also been collection locations for Clean Up Peterborough, Period Purse, and most recently Coats for Communities. And we really appreciate the contributions that the community gives to these organizations going through the library. Next slide. By the numbers, to October 31st, we have had 48,241 items checked out through the library. That's either physical material or what I call our virtual branch, our online resources. We've had over 4,000 people take part in our on-site activities. A lot of that is through our seniors community grant. And to date, well, to October 31st, we'd had 729 volunteered hours, which is wonderful having people come into the library to help us in different ways. The next slide just shows a graph of our circulation. The orange is our in-branch material that my estimate is that we'll have about 31,000 circulated by the end of this year. And the virtual branch, about 26,000 items. That makes our total of 48 that I had on the previous slide. The next slide shows our grants that we've had, 3 seniors community grants, which have brought in over $63,000 to the library and helps us offer more events for the seniors in our community. A 4th application is underway with a deadline of next Thursday, December 18th. We'll be applying for the full amount that's available. I know I've used this quote before. One of our participants said that this project saved her life, that she was housebound for the most part, not wanting to go out and do anything. And then she found out about our programs at the library, and she comes all the time, including yesterday when the snow was happening. We had our coffee and conversation, and she drove to be there because it just means so much to her. While the seniors community grant is a big focus, we also have more activities going on. And the next slide shows our adult story time that I mentioned at the Bruce Johnston branch on Tuesday mornings. And now I think it's only been going for about 6 months. Courtney goes to Springdale Manor and reads stories for the residents there. We have many craft groups that meet at the library. Local artisans meet several times a month and at both branches now. Originally, it was just at the Bruce Johnston branch, but we've had asked for it to happen in Millbrook, so we have accommodated that. And it's wonderful. Local artisans come in, they demonstrate, they teach, and it's a great way for patrons to learn something new. We have an ongoing book club with rousing discussions. Not everyone likes all the books, and sometimes that takes people outside their comfort zone. Teens and tweens are a really hard group to cater to find activities that they're interested in. We've been exploring a time on Tuesday afternoons at the Bruce Johnston branch where we have had paper folding. One of our wonderful volunteers comes in and demonstrates that for us. Any idea what kangaroo boots are? It's an exercise program with a spring boot that someone in the community has access to various sizes of these. And so we've offered this twice at the library for the teens and tweens, and it's been very popular. We also have VR headsets that we bought with our first seniors community grant. And it was considered a portable asset and something that we could use for ongoing programming, and very popular with the teens and tweens. Edith McKinley, someone that you are probably familiar with in our community, gave a quote to Donna Lynn Clark, the regional advisor with the Ministry of Seniors and Community Services. And she said that the program has added a whole new dimension to her life. I told her I was going to use the quote in this and she said she stands by it, use her name. The library continues to be a meeting place, a community hub. Besides borrowing the materials, the patrons come for a variety of activities. So that we don't lose sight of them, the vision, mission, and goals are on the library agenda each month. You've seen this slide last year when I did this. Our values are that we foster learning, we have accountability, collaboration with partners and with the needs of the residents. Quality, we offer creative and innovative programs and services, and inclusion. We create a safe and welcoming space for everyone. Our strategic goals are on the next slide here. Again, I showed this one last year. This is something that the board keeps me accountable with, that we try to hit these targets. I have a set of a spreadsheet that I work through each month showing what kind of movement I've made on the tasks that are set out to try and hit these goals. They give direction to the library board and to me and to my staff. And now I'm coming to the main part of the presentation, our budget for this year. I know there's a lot of text on this slide. The good news, our budget request has actually been reduced slightly from the numbers that were provided to Ms. Pope. The board met on November 17th and at that time made some reductions, and then further adjustments were made on December 2nd when the finance committee met. The operating budget has had a reduction of $4,800, a reduction of 1.5% from Ms. Pope's numbers. This slide shows our current numbers, where I'd been asking for a 5.3% increase in the operating levy. We have dropped it to 4.13 for the operating levy. A lot of the savings have come through increasing a few of our self-generated revenue accounts. The increase in our operating levy comes from a 1.9% cost of living increase and the required MERCs that are around that, as well as partial funding for one summer student, depending on getting a grant through Canada Summer Jobs Grant, and modest increases to a staffing level. There are some increases in our non-salary part. I've put in $2,000 for cybersecurity. In 2025, that number was covered in our IT investment, but now that it's moving into an ongoing expense, it's moved into operating. And for now, I put in $1,000 placeholder for recycling, as we are still exploring what's happening with that. So that comes out to a change of $13,766 over last year's levy request. When it comes to the capital budget, and this is part of what was holding up our numbers before, we were looking at what we can do in terms of development charges. This year, we are spending $30,000 on ebooks, books, and DVDs. We're looking at a small increase for next year of $31,250 as our total, a difference of $1,250. That actually represents about a 5% increase on our book purchasing and our ebook purchasing. We are maintaining DVD levels at the current rate. They're becoming harder and harder to source, but still popular with our patrons. This year, the capital levy, 2025, we'd asked for $22,000 to support that and $8,000 coming from development charges. The Finance Committee met with Ms. Pope on December 2nd to discuss using the development charges differently. Next slide. At that meeting, we looked at what kind of formulas could be used to determine how to use development charges. So these are monies that are already collected on behalf of the library. There's all the background studies that have been done that were part of the development charge bylaw, showing that the library needs a certain amount of money to keep buying materials to support growth. But how do we determine growth? I've asked my colleagues in the library world, and for every library in Ontario, there's a different answer. So it becomes very complicated. What the committee decided was that about 85% of the materials we purchase is growth. Only about 15% is on material that are replacement or not growing the collection. We looked at how many books we add to the collection, how many we remove, and then came up with a target, or 85% is 982 items as an average over the past 3 years. Using the factor that's in the development charge study of $30 an item comes to a budget of about $29,000. Now, our draft budget for this year for books was $23,100. And so we used the same factor of 85% and came to an amount of $19,635 to ask for through the development charges. Again, looking at the development charges, money was set aside for e-resources. And so what we've asked for is $800, which is the difference between what was in the background paper and what we are asking for as a budget for this year. Similarly, ebooks were also recorded in the development charges, and we're asking for the difference between what was recorded for the yearly amount in the development charges and what I proposed for spending. If we can go back one slide. So that shows you in the column for 2026, the increase in the circulating collection, the decrease from 2025 to 2026 in our capital levy request, but the subsequent increase in the development charge with a drawdown. But actually, Mayor Graham, would you like to expand on this, or have I explained it well enough?
Happy to, Carla. Yeah, so when we calculated and evaluated how we were utilizing the DC revenue, I think the important numbers in summation are, with adding the two together, the impact on the levy is the $11,495 plus the aggregate of $1,910 from the two e-resources components. So the net result in the levy from a capital standpoint from the DC utilization is a reduction in $13,405. Dollars. And then, as Carla mentioned as well, the $4,800 operating reduction as well. So the total impact on the levy for council's consideration is a reduction of $18,205. That's a combination of the operating and capital reduction. So that's where what it all means when it comes to the budget considerations. Hope that helps, Carla.
I didn't quite follow all your numbers, so we'll have to check that afterwards just to make sure. The last portion of my budget is on our IT investment. Last year, we had a rollover of $6,126. We've had $6,000 come from capital levy for a total of $12,000. This year, I'm asking for just $6,000. I may have a small rollover because right now, out of the $12,000 I had, I've spent $9,000. There are still some receipts coming in. So then that will offset what I asked for this year. The money from 2025 has bought 6 new computers for the public to use. We have reduced our fleet from 14 to 6 after watching usage over the last 4 years. It's also been used to purchase the cybersecurity software and get that set up. Several of the computers that we were running Windows 11 Home, and as per the report that I talked about last year that came from the Peterborough County, they would like to see all the computers running Windows 11 Pro, and so those updates have been made. Some of those costs don't quite reflect there in the 92,000, yes, 92,000 yet, 9,200, sorry. Yeah, moved to zero. This year's budget, the 2026 budget, will replace the 4 circulation computers, the ones that we use to check the books in and out, and then a couple of staff workstations, depending on how far the money goes, as we're trying to set up a cycle that instead of replacing all of the library workstations at the same time, we'll get them onto a cycle. I want the 6 public access computers, the ones that the public can use, they change all at the same time because staff work in both locations and have to maintain those computers. Same thing with the circulation computers. It's easier if they're identical because then it's all the same for all the staff to use. Workstations can have a little bit of variability, so that's what we're looking into. The last slide I have. During a public library week in October, we ran a small draw for a potted mum. It's interesting how much people enjoy doing that thing, but on the ballot, I asked people to write down one word that you would describe what the library means to you. One of my Mohawk students, as a task in the library, created me this word cloud, and it just shows you, I liked the fact that people think we're happy, community, fun, that some of those words are just wonderful ways to describe the library. I have my thank you slide, but then there are 2 more slides. One shows a summary of the operating budget, and then the second one shows our circulating materials and how that breaks down the IT investment, as well as how we are using our donation reserves, or how they have been used in 2025. If there are any questions.
Great, thanks, Carla. Thanks for the presentation. And it's always nice when come back with a little wiggle room for us to consider. So that's great. I think my numbers are right. We'll get Kimberly to audit them later when we make our adjustments and motions. But thank you for doing that. Questions, members of council with regards to the library? Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair, Carla, I was surprised when you mentioned that ebooks were getting harder to source. What would be the explanation? Oh, okay.
Through you, Mayor, it's DVDs that are getting harder to source. You know, the discs. Books are easy to get. It's the DVDs, the TV shows and movies that are harder.
Thanks, Carla. Follow up, Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair, so do you track the usage into the libraries from the actual new subdivision just built south of the Fallis line here to say whether that group is utilizing the facilities in that township at all?
Through you, Mayor. That's a hard one to do. I have tried mapping it, but because Millbrook has one postal code, it's really tough. We don't like to ask patrons if they're new because it's interesting. We sometimes have patrons come in to get a new card or come in to get a card, and we say, oh, are you new? And they say, oh no, I've lived here for 30 years, but I've never been to the library. I've been too busy. I worked in a different community. And so we try not to ask too much on that because it can be a very awkward exchange.
Councilor Nash. Oh, okay, follow up, sure.
Through the chair on that note, then, like I was worried more about or interested more in the addressing, right? There's lots of people that move in and out of the community. I just wondered, like, as far as the new subdivision goes, whether that's generating more traffic through the libraries.
Through you. We are seeing more and more people with addresses from that area. I have tried to harvest the data occasionally from our ILS system and drop it into Google Mapping, but it's not easy to do.
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Carla, and all that you're doing at the library. Get a ton of positive feedback from the community on the facility and the services and everything that you do. So we're very fortunate to have it. Just a couple of quick questions. The first is, can you just briefly discuss how you determine removing books from circulation and then what happens to those books? And then I have one more question after that.
Through you, Mayor. Weeding is a very complex art. Uh, Normally, it's based on the number of circulations over a certain number of years. So we've been using our system now since 2018. Unfortunately, when we changed from our old system for circulation to our new one, we couldn't pull any of that data. But now that we've been using it since 2018, we can take a look back. And if a book has not been used since we got into the new system, maybe it's looking tired, the cover is rough. There's a whole system of acronyms that you can use on the condition of material. So we start with the condition, the appearance of it, and then we move into how much it's been used. If it looks terrible but it's used a lot, then we will recommend a replacement item. If it hasn't been used, then we remove it from the shelf. Fortunately, with a lot of my staff being on staff for many years, they know the patrons, they know what kind of material people like. They also have a really good knowledge of, haven't seen this book go across the counter in years, and so it will be a candidate to go. One of the things that really prompts us in weeding is space constraints. Shelving is finite. And so in order to buy more material, we have to remove material. And so we then go out to the shelves. And when you're shelving material, if it's tight in an area, there's no more space to put in book, then we take a look at that and a range of authors and see what looks like material that hasn't circulated. We'll often bring it up to the counter, we scan it and make sure that we are working on the information from the computer system as opposed to just our own knowledge, but all of it factors in. As for disposing of it, most of that material goes into our ongoing book sale. And then it will be in the book sale for several months, couple of years. And then unfortunately, there comes a time when material, if it hasn't sold, hasn't gone out through the book sale, we have to just recycle it.
Follow up?
Great, thank you. One last thing, you had mentioned the coats for communities, and I was just wondering if that initiative, since it's so cold outside today, if it's still ongoing, and if so, could you give us some information on how the community could get coats back? How it all works and if it's still going? Thanks.
Actually, the Coats for Communities was through the United Way, and the materials that were donated to us were picked up on Tuesday. And I'm not sure how they're doing their distribution this year. Now, on a similar note, we actually had a really fun thing in October. We had a costume exchange for Halloween, which was very different. That was all us. And it was a ton of fun having people come in, look at the costumes that were available. Many of them went out. Some of you might have seen them at your doors during trick or treating.
Another follow-up. Council.
Thank you. I was just like came in my head as we were doing this. Given the weather and what's happening today, maybe it might be something that you and I might be able to do and work with the food bank, that if there's any of the people that are using the services of the food bank that are in need of any clothes, we might want to do a Christmas clothing drive or something. I would be happy to. I know that you're busy, but you know, over the next couple months of all this cold weather, if something can be done, I'd be happy to assist you in, you know, making that available. I could take donations at the store or something as well. But if you're up to it, I'd be happy to talk to you and see what we might be able to do and the food bank to help those people out.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, thank you, Carla, for the delegation. And we just need a motion of council to receive the presentation with regards to the Cavan Monaghan Public Libraries for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Edgerton. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you, Carla. Next is Mr. Robert Jackson with regards to Milk Valley Trails Advisory Committee. Robert.
Good morning. For those who don't know me, my name is Robert Jackson. I'm the chair of the Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee. So we're here this morning for a request for our 2026 operating budget. So in our September 22nd, 2025 monthly meeting, a motion was passed for the following request from the Cavan Monaghan Council in regard to the Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee 2026 operating budget. So $6,000 for materials and supplies and $2,000 for contracted services. The materials and supplies make up essentially the wood that we purchase to build boardwalks, and some tools, and $2,000 for contracted services. That's generally for things like every year we do spraying for poison ivy or invasive species like dog strangling vine, etc. This request for 2026 operating budget is slightly more than we have asked for in past years. We've been directed by the township that we are no longer able to build boardwalks in the same way that we have for 20 plus years. And we now require additional supplies like pressure treated wood and concrete and cement blocks to build those boardwalks. We also have an additional request, the first of two. At the same September meeting, the following motion was passed, that the committee requests for the 2026 capital budget of one new capital project being $25,000 to update the Cavan Monaghan Trails Master Plan. So the existing Trails Master Plan was prepared by Autonomy Conservation for the Township of Cavan Monaghan in June of 2010. So that's quite some time. Feel the master plan is out of date and needs revisiting. Just a few notes here on what a master plan is and does. It's intended to serve as an updated framework for the development of future trails and passive recreation opportunities within the township. This will be achieved by documenting existing resources, our existing trails, our existing lots to be able to put trails on, identifying opportunities to expand current trails, create linkages to trails outside the township, and enhance and access and facilities on public lands. A new trails master plan will also identify the broad goals and objectives of the township with regard to the enhancement of existing recreational opportunities and the creation of new recreational opportunities. It will also assist Cavan Monaghan to preserve the natural and cultural heritage of the area and create opportunities for social interaction and community development. And a key priority of the Trail Master Plan is to identify and create linkages within existing trails and recreational areas in Cavan Monaghan Township and the surrounding region. So the township has advised us that a consultant cost to develop a new Trails Master Plan could range anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. So we're asking for this money to be kept aside perhaps on a yearly basis until the budget allows for an RFP to be tendered in this motion. And I've just included a URL where the existing Trails Master Plan can be found on the Cavan Monaghan website. Our next slide and our next additional request, the second of two for our capital budget. Again, in our September 22nd, 2025 meeting, following motion was passed. Seemed to be a busy meeting, but we do meet 9 months of the year, and we do discuss these things all throughout the year. But on September 22nd, 2025, the committee requests for the 2026 budget that the township explore the cost of acquiring additional lands needed to construct a new proposed trail that will cover the boundaries of the former Soden Mansion. This is what we're thinking of calling it thus far. The proposed Mansion Loop will take advantage of a circular trail along mostly township-owned property near the fairgrounds, highlighting the former Soden Mansion and grounds at the end of Main Street. This will be the first new trail created by the Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee since the opening of Station Trail in 2018. So just a bit of a background on the Mansion Loop and sort of a brief history. So the Soden family, notably William Henry Soden, who's also apparently known as the Squire, were holders in Millbrook who bought, sold, and issued mortgages on land in the late 19th century. The Squire Soden, who served as Millbrook's reeve from 1881 to 82, was determined to center Millbrook's business section around the railway station on lands he owned. He guided the development of Main Street to center around the railway station near today's medical center. In the latter half of the 19th century, W.H. Snowden saw the potential of the fertile lands and creek southwest of Main Street and built an elegant dwelling on the crest above the creek that became known as the Mansion, and the land below the Mansion grounds. So Snowden really wanted to create a utopia, and in addition to his large mansion, he constructed walkways, bridges, stairs, and paths that led to man-made pools where spring-fed waters of Baxter Creek would become warm enough for swimming. Golf greens were created and fenced, and the greens were groomed each week. A clubhouse was constructed for socializing, as were storage sheds for golf equipment. The elegant mansion grounds were the scene for many Sunday school picnics and garden parties. These were often formal and dignified events, and gala affairs were attended by the social elite of the village and surrounding community. The mansion was destroyed by a fire at the turn of the century, and very little evidence of the era remains today. The bridges and paths and steps have all but disappeared, but traces of the old structure and the foundation of the mansion are still visible, and that would be sort of the highlight of our proposed new trail. The mansion grounds have taken their appointed place in Cavan Monaghan's history and memories. So just for a bit of a reference, the next slide here shows the red square. So there's the fairgrounds, the end of Main Street. And for those of you that are regular users of the trail, you'll know that there's an existing trail off the fairgrounds called the Fairgrounds Trail that leads down to Baxter Creek and down to our Baxter Creek Trail, where you're able to access existing trail linkages in our extensive trail network. The proposed route and ownership, we can see here that in the green box is a privately owned piece of property, which would be part of our request. And the pink is a sort of just a proposed loop for the trail as it stands now. We're still in the early stages, but again, we wanted to put this proposal to council for their consideration. One note that our users have talked about quite frequently, probably the most well-used trail in our network is Baxter Creek, just off the end of Distillery Street in Millbrook. And that really provides users a very nice loop where they can go along the creek and then up along the edges of Meds Mountain and back down into Meds Park. Unfortunately, at that end of town, there's no real loop system. So trail users sort of go in on one trail and come back on the same trail. You know, from an aesthetic perspective, this would provide a nice walking loop, as well as highlighting again the W.H. Snowden grounds and being able to provide a brief history of Millbrook and Cavan Monaghan as it once were. So going on to that in the next slide, so some of the Mansion Loop benefits were, again, to revitalize the historic Mansion grounds area as a public walking trail, celebrate Cavan Monaghan's cultural heritage and natural landscapes, enhance community access to Baxter Creek, the meadows and woodland, provide educational and recreational opportunities. And in that, the proposed trail would include signage to highlight the remaining foundation of Snowden's mansions and pictures of the house and grounds as they once were. So we're working in collaboration with the Millbrook Historical Society. I've got some pictures to show you, and we would propose signage to be able to show again what that W.H. Snowden's utopia and his vision were, and sort of the extensive network of infrastructure at that end of town. And again, this trail will intersect with the Millbrook Valley Trails Fairgrounds trails and allow users access to the Baxter Creek Trail and the rest of our trail network. So it's not just a one-off trail off on its own. It's going to intersect with these other trails and give users the ability to traverse our entire network. So on that, there's just, again, courtesy of the Millbrook Historical Society, some of the pictures that we have. So this was the golf clubhouse. This was once an extensive bridge over. For those of you who've been down there, there are some quite large ravines. It would be very nice to be able to recreate a bridge like that at some point, but I don't think that's in the cards financially or insurability wise. But it's certainly interesting to look at. And the next slide are, again, just sort of recreational opportunities down there. That's the railway bridge and fishing and sort of, you know, well-dressed gentlemen and ladies back in the day. So that was it, and thank you for myself and the rest of our Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee members. Are there any questions around that?
Thanks, Rob, and thanks for the inclusion of the pictures. Those are great. Questions, members of council, with regards to the Millbrook Valley Trail delegation? Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Rob. It was great. And the pictures are always fun to look at. I guess my question is around that trail, like what's the length of that trail? Like, I didn't see that. Like, is it a kilometer, half a kilometer, 20 yards?
Sorry, I think I forget. I believe that it's over a kilometer. And again, it's because you're traversing the sort of some of the hilly areas there and back around. So it's not a short loop by any means. Yeah.
Counselor Nacho?
Rob, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. Excellent job as well. I wanted to commend sitting on the Trails Committee, all the great work that everyone and dedication that all of you guys and ladies do. Working in the store, I have hundreds of positive feedbacks from visitors coming in, utilizing the trail. So just that the staff and the community are aware of the incredibly positive impact it has both economically, recreationally to the community. And I like the ambition of our proposal for the new loop, the master plan as well, something that we need to address. So I think just want to commend everyone for the great job that they're doing. Also a shout out to Chris Allison and as well as Public Works for always always being there available to help with anything that needs for trails maintenance, helping us source materials and saving money when we can. So great job to everyone. So yeah, that was more comment than anything else. Keep up the good work.
Deputy Mayor?
That's you, Chair. I guess one thing I'm missing, I don't know whether it's just me, but was there an actual capital request for the new trail? Like, I don't see that dollar value.
Through you, Mayor. I believe the request from township staff is really to have council look into the viability of the monies around potentially purchasing that piece of private land so that this trail could be completed. So again, the vast majority on this slide here of those lots are owned by the township. But there's one, again, highlighted in green that ownership needs to be transferred in order for the loop to be realized. Otherwise, we are traversing a private property, which is obviously something we do not do on our trail network.
Great. Yeah, so obviously when staff can look into that, I don't think there's any need to put a capital request to it and they can report back to the board. But obviously there's no sense in going too far down the planning stages of a trail when the property is kind of a keystone piece to it. So we can sort of, buffer that. And it's, it's scary to see the cost of trails master plan update. So it's definitely something we're going to have to amortize over a few years and hopefully work out and figure out how it can get done at a time. But thanks again for all the hard work that the Trails Committee does. Love the trails on them every week, and it really is a great asset, and everyone does a lot of great work. So thanks to all the volunteers. We are just receiving the presentation for information. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Natchoff, seconded by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? That is approved. Thanks, Rob. Next, we have Ashley Stewart with regards to the Mr. Hack Committee. Welcome, Ashley.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Stewart, and I'm the current chair of the Municipal Revitalization and Heritage Advisory Committee. On behalf of the committee, I would like to present the status of the numerous projects we have overseen in the last year. Okay. The restoration of Springville and Ebenezer cemeteries. 2 committee members and Karen Ellis volunteered to conduct the annual inspection. The inspection generally involves a visual assessment of the monuments in the property. Monuments are touched to determine if components remain firmly in place. Repair of a monument at Ebenezer was identified and the repair scheduled to be completed by early December. 5 bylaws, the heritage bylaws in the township. 5 bylaws were updated by the committee. 2 bylaws went to and were approved by council in 2025. 3 additional bylaws are ready to be presented to council early next year. Additional bylaws will be updated throughout 2026, approval by the committee, and then presented to council with the proper notification to the community and property owners as required by the Ontario Heritage Act. This project was an enormous undertaking. Bylaws will continue to be reviewed by the committee and presented to councils as they are completed. Next slide. Our train station signage project. A railway switch was purchased in the fall and picked up by township staff. The installation of the switch is now complete. Text has been drafted and approved by committee. A site plan has been completed by a committee member and will be presented at the committee's January 2026 meeting. A mock-up of the switch, the signal switch sign will come before council in the new year for your review and approval. Landscaping will be completed once the signage is installed, which we expect in the spring. The mural of the train station. It is located on the west side of 22 King Street West, downtown. This mural is maintained yearly. In 2025, the maintenance was shifted to the spring so that any damage that occurred over the winter was addressed at the start of the spring, so that the preservation of the mural could be enjoyed throughout the summer months. The Springville and Ebenezer Cemetery signage. Wording for the signage was approved by the committee. The CAO has signed off on the sign. Fabrication shop drawings. Signs are being ordered and installation will occur as weather permits. The township cultural mapping. The summer student position of this project completed the current inventory, reassessing the current inventory. They assessed what was still existing, the condition of that inventory, and other relevant information, such as up-to-date photos. This updated information was inputted into the program, which notes provides current cultural mapping data to 2025. Karen Ellis, in her position of Director of Planning, will complete the final approval of all updated information before it goes live to the public. One project has identified a potential site for designation. There is ongoing contact with the property owner to investigate next steps. This project also provided the opportunity for collaboration between the committee and the Millbrook and Cavan Historical Society. We thank them for their assistance. The Springville Church. A site visit of township staff and a committee member allowed for the opportunity to identify artifacts for salvage. The committee and township staff are working with the Centerville Church for storage and display of a stained glass window, which you can see the first image there on the left. The committee is working on developing concepts for the remaining artifacts. Obtaining these artifacts is dependent on notification from MTO of when the church will be scheduled for demolition. The Old Millbrook School. The committee has participated in the review of the scope of work that has recently been undertaken at the school. We assisted with selection of shingles, conducted an on-site review of light fixtures and mock-ups of the wood floor replacement repairs, and reviewed shop drawings for the new doors. The committee continues to promote heritage awards. I use this opportunity to bring attention to this initiative. If you know of anyone, person or business, that are good stewards of a heritage structure or make significant contributions to the presentation or awareness of history, architecture within the township, I encourage you to go to the township's website, check out the criteria, and fill out a nomination form. Some committee members participate in the CIP application review and inspection program, which is continuously ongoing. And then getting into the meat of the presentation. With the successful 2025 behind us, on behalf of the Municipal Revitalization and Heritage Advisory Committee, we are requesting the following for 2026. From the operating budget, 500 for heritage awards, 1,500 for contracted services for mural restoration, 1,000 for landscaping at Station Park, 100 for mileage for all MRHAC activities, 500 for advertising, specifically for heritage bylaws, 500 for Springville Church artifact collection and storage, And then moving on to the 2026 capital budget. At this time, we're requesting a rollover of the unused portion of the previously approved funding for the Station Park signage project. And that is it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks to all the hard work for the committee, and I know Councillor Edgerton's serving as the representative on that committee, so he keeps us up to date on all of that. Any questions with regards to the Mr. Hack presentation? Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Chair, and welcome, Ashley, and thanks for the presentation. I'm always delighted to see the great work that Mr. Hack is doing and continuing. I guess my question with the budget is the heritage bylaws. I don't see any budget in there for them other than advertising. Has that program ceased? Have we cataloged all the properties that we needed to catalog, or how's that going to work?
Through you, Chair. At this point, 2 years ago, we had a summer student come in and was in a 6-month contract position. They did the initial assessment of updating all the bylaws. And when I say update, he visited the properties, did a photograph inventory of those, reassessed the heritage attributes to the best of their ability, and reformatted all the bylaws to the current format that is required by the Act. They were in fantastic draft format. That's the way I would express it. Then what happens is I look at each bylaw, and due to my profession and my specialty in architecture, I take the time to go through them, and I essentially re-review either by going to site again or reviewing the photographs that were taken and just ensuring that everything was captured. So as I noted before, it is a time a long time project even for each bylaw. So it's honestly just doing as many as we possibly can. And then once I have the time to review them, it then gets presented to the committee.
Not really a follow-up, but just to say, well, thank you so much for your effort and doing that. Like, that's going well above and beyond what I think the committees are expecting of any single committee member. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Thanks for all the great work. Seeing no other questions, we're just looking for, again, a motion to receive the presentation for information. Moved by Councillor Edgerton, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you again, Ashley. Next, we have Leslie joining us online, I believe, with regards to the Sustainability Advisory Committee update. Leslie, just want to make sure you can hear me, just maybe and speak so we can make sure we can hear you.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
It's a little faint, but we'll try to make some adjustments here. So just bear with us, Leslie, for
Okay.
a second, okay? Do you want to try again for us, Leslie?
Okay, how's that now?
I think that's better. So I think we'll
Okay.
go forward with that.
Great, thank you. So good morning, I'm Leslie Wilcox, and I'm here to present the 2026 budget request on behalf of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. Just before going into the actual budget details, sorry, Mark, next slide, please. I'd like to provide a brief overview of the legislation and adopted plans that guide the work of the committee. So first, of course, you're familiar with the Ontario Electricity Act. This requires that all municipalities track and report their energy usage to the province. They also must maintain a plan that demonstrates ways that they can reduce their energy usage for corporately owned assets. We also have our adopted Climate Change Action Plan. This was established in, I think, about 2014 by most upper and lower tier municipalities. And these kind of filter down from both federal and provincial climate change action plans. We also have the Paris Agreement, which was signed in 2015. This was signed by the countries who signed the United Nations Framework on the Convention of Climate Change Treaty. You're probably familiar with this. The Paris Agreement initially set out that countries who signed the treaty would reduce their emissions by a set amount by 2030. And of course, conversations around that are still ongoing every year at our climate conventions. And then lastly, we have our new Township of Cavan Monaghan strategic plan. Environmental sustainability is one of 6 key priorities or pillars that is included in the new plan. And I've included a snapshot of some of the action items that are associated to that priority. There's many more, but these are the action items that the committee has decided to focus on for our upcoming year. And next slide, please. And just doing a brief overview of the summary of the committee's 2025 programming. We had an approved budget of $15,000, and we had an actual spend on programming of about $11,445. First off was our Rain Barrel program. It was very successful. We had quite a lot of demand within the community for rain barrels. For 2025, we sold 118 rain barrels at a discounted price of $30. The cost for the township to purchase the rain barrel was $80, and this resulted in a $50 rebate for residents. We did have a limit of 2 per household. Our second program was a new program for 2025. This was a residential tree planting program. And we offered approximately 650 trees for purchase to any resident living in the township. These were 2-gallon native trees, which were provided by Pine Needle Farms. We purchased these at a discounted cost of approximately $20 per tree, and we sold these to residents for $10 per tree. We did place a limit on the number of trees that residents could purchase, simply because there was such an increased demand following the April 2025 ice storm. We spent a total of $245 on advertising. And I do want to note that these figures exclude a carryover amount from the LDACO data analysis, as it wasn't really a community program, but more so a project that staff worked on to support the requirements under the Ontario Electricity Act. Excuse me. So our total program spend ended up being about $11,445. I do just want to mention that there was an additional community grant that came in after I had submitted my slides that further reduced the committee's 2025 spend. And moving into 2026, the committee is proposing 4 programs and 1 community event. So I'll review each program and the associated costs, and just do want to state that we are requesting the same amount we requested in 2025, which is $15,000. So looking at our first program, we'd like to bring back the residential tree planting program. We're proposing to offer 700 trees. These are, again, native trees that would be available to all residents for purchase. The cost to the township is approximately $20 a tree. This year, we're proposing to sell them for $15, which results in about a $5 rebate for residents. The net program cost would then be approximately $3,500. And the trees, again, would be provided by Pine Needle Farms. The goal of the committee is to primarily offer this through pre-orders. So residents would make the purchase in advance, and then staff would place the order, leveraging the funds and the trees that residents have ordered. So that will help cut down on any leftover trees, which is something we experienced this year. This meets several items within both the strategic plan and as well our adopted climate change action plan. Sorry, pardon me. And then the next program that we would like to bring back is, again, our Rain Barrel program. We are proposing to offer up to 100 barrels for purchase. This is open to all residents living within the township. The cost to us is $80 per barrel. This year, we're proposing to sell them for $50, and that still results in a $30 rebate for residents. That's still a very, very discounted price, looking at your typical market price for a rain barrel. So the net program cost for that would be approximately $3,000, which is the 100 units times the net cost of $30. This again meets several items from our new strategic plan and several strategies from our adopted climate change action plan. And we would like to run our Earth Day event again this year. Earth Day falls on Wednesday, April the 22nd. This event is really an opportunity to fulfill community engagement, provide resources to residents in terms of what sustainability initiatives are available to them within the community. And this spans anywhere from electric vehicles, energy retrofits for your home, waste management. So we had the Repair Cafe in this year, so they are able to repair electronics that are broken, make repairs to clothing. We also had Clean Up Peterborough attend, and they accept recycling items that commonly aren't accepted through the Blue Box program. And we've asked for a little bit more budget-wise for this because although we had a great turnout last year, it was primarily from people coming to make purchases. And we'd like to try to come up with ways to engage the community a bit more, include more of an education and awareness component, whether we have a speaker series, looking at options for including activities for children, like such as tree planting or seed planting, and so on. And this event, again, meets several of our items from our strategic plan and fulfills multiple strategies from our adopted climate change action plan. And then next slide, please. Thanks, Mark. And the Sustainability Committee is proposing 2 new programs this year. One that we're really excited about is this initiative of pollinator packs. So a pollinator pack is a prepackaged tray of 2-year-old plants. And these are, there's no options for selecting your plants, but the plants come suited to either be planted in the sun, the shade, or on the boulevard. These are all native plants that you would find growing in prairies and grasslands and whatnot within Southern Ontario. So we're proposing to offer 150 of these packs. This would be open as well to all residents living within the township. The box cost is approximately $80, which is in itself a hugely discounted price. We're looking at partnering with Burrow Wild, which is our closest native plant wholesaler. They're located in Omemee. And we're proposing to sell these boxes for $40 to residents, which would give them a rebate of $40. So we're looking at 150 units times the township's cost of 40, which would put us at a total cost for $6,000 to roll out the program as we've initially suggested. The program elements for this would include an information package of educational material around the benefits of each plant. So for example, which plants may attract the monarch butterfly, which is becoming extinct, which plants are good for pollinators, which plants are good for birds that would provide them food throughout the winter months. And it would also include a care guide, and it would include a planting guide. So this meets several items from our strategic plan, particularly introducing new programs and initiatives that promote sustainability. And it also meets several strategies within our adopted climate change action plan. And then lastly, the next program that we're investigating is a Boulevard Garden program. So Boulevard Gardens leverage what we would call underused grass areas that would allow for a lower maintenance option of native plants as opposed to frequent grass cutting. The benefit of Boulevard Gardens is that they can significantly reduce your stormwater runoff during periods of heavy rain, and they also help prevent flooding after periods of drought. These also help increase biodiversity and pollinator habitat, which is especially important in communities that are undergoing periods of rapid growth, as it helps bring back that biodiversity that has been lost in the community. So the budget impacts would primarily be educational materials, like talking about posters, pamphlets, so that people understand what plants they're allowed to plant on the boulevard, because there would be exclusions around height and species, and as well, kind of the logistics in terms of how close to plant and how far away from the sidewalk and the road, etc. This program meets several action items from the strategic plan and also several strategies from within our approved climate change action plan. And that's it for programming. Again, our total budget request for 2026 is $15,000. This will allow us to deliver programs in the community that align with our climate change action plan and the Township of Cavan Monaghan's strategic plan. The committee does prioritize initiatives that can be adopted by all residents across the township. So whether you live in a more rural property or you are in the Millbrook development area. These are programs that are suitable for everyone. We're also focused on developing timely communications that provide not only information on the township's programs, but also other initiatives within the greater Peterborough area that help people to adopt climate adaptation and mitigation initiatives. So thank you very much for your time. Any questions, I'm happy to take them, or also invite you to join one of our Sustainability Advisory Committee meetings next year.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you for the thorough presentation. Excellent. And a lot of great things going on and a lot of great things having been done last year. So great work to you and all of the committee. Questions, members of council? Councillor Nacho.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just want to commend the new committee. You guys have done an excellent job. I personally have taken advantage of both the rain barrel and the tree programs that you had available this year, and the feedback that I got from the community and people that participated was really appreciative. I think that was a really great start, and I definitely also commend you for, bringing forward 2 new proposed programs. I think that they're both really, in line with the thinking and strategy of where you guys are going with everything. So congratulations, and I'm glad you're bringing new stuff forward along with returning the other things. The only question I had was in regards to the Boulevard program, and if your committee has already identified areas throughout the township that you were thinking that, it may be suitable at this time. I'd understand if you haven't yet.
Thanks, Lance. Through the chair, I would say that this program is still in the development stages. Our initial thoughts were that this would be basically open to residents anywhere within the community who want to participate. So, of course, we would, I think, want to encourage this happening, particularly in areas of new development, because it helps, bring back biodiversity. But really, this is an initiative that can certainly be supported, even if you're on a rural property, to do some planting on your boulevard. So this program is, I believe, currently being in the early stages of discussion between bylaw and public works. And then we'll go from there in terms of how we want to roll it out and manage it.
Great, thanks, Leslie. The only thought I had, and I understand like we can't control when these dates happen, but I didn't know if there was any consideration to, other than being on the exact Earth Day, with some of the great agencies that you're bringing in for that event. I would just wonder if there was any thought or consideration to maybe doing it on the Sunday or the Saturday, just to optimize the participation. During a Tuesday evening, right at the dinner hour, is kind of difficult, and I think that seeing some of the uptake in some of the other programs last year with the traffic that was associated with them.
Yes.
I mean, obviously it's best for everyone to have the uptake and have the participation. So I just didn't know if that was a consideration or not, but it's not really a question. It's just something to consider. And like I said, I'm sure, we can work with staff if there was any consideration to bump that date up. Seeing it's at the Tuesday, it's pretty close to the weekend before.
Yeah,
So
I think that's, sorry, for interrupting you. It kind of
no problem.
cut off there. I think that's a great idea. The committee has talked about like how can we make it easier for people to attend, and how can we increase participation. So I think that's just some work for the committee to explore, is when is really the best date to hold it. Does it need to be held on Earth Day, or can it be held on a weekend? And then further to that, would that cause any concern for some of our exhibitors that may be attending? So I think if we get started early enough and staff are on board and the committee is on board, I think we're certainly open to picking a date that would really lend us to having maximized participation, and also make it easier for us to manage the traffic coming into the community center for people looking to make purchases.
Yep, excellent. Okay, great. Councillor Natchaf has a question.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just kind of a follow-up. I was just looking on my computer here, and I see that there's a National Tree Day. It's celebrated like across the provinces the last week in September. So maybe that might be something to take into consideration with the tree program. I know that you kind of do that earlier, more summertime, but
Yeah.
maybe something that could be like used as an educational tool with the schools coming back at that time as well. So something to think about. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that feedback. And it's, certainly happy to explore all opportunities to really just, share ideas around sustainability in the community.
Great. Thanks, Leslie. And thanks again for attending today and presenting. It's a very good presentation and we appreciate all the hard work that the committee is doing.
Wonderful.
Seeing no other questions, we'll just take a motion to receive the presentation for information moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you to all the members. Not everyone was able to stick around, but I just want to thank everyone from the committees and different boards to coming to present to council. That concludes that part of the delegation. And now we move into the finance report from Ms. Pope with regards to the first draft 2026 budget presentation. Oh, yeah, and sorry, before I further, there's been some additional revisions to the presentation, so we need a motion of council to add the additional presentation materials. Moved by Councilor Byrd, second by Councilor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Now over to you, Ms. Pope.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to all of council. I believe as well, because the BIA wasn't able to be here today to present, there was just going to be mentioned that in the budget, there's a placeholder. They have requested $18,450, which is $450 more than the $18,000 from last year. We received notification in November, on November 12th, of that. And I believe there might be a little bit more information from the deputy mayor, perhaps.
Through you, Chair, I guess. Yeah, the budget was reviewed with the members on November 26th. I think there was a bit of an oversight. We should have approved it at our BIA meeting this morning, but it got missed. But so it will be approved for January 8th, I believe is the next BIA meeting. The increase, I believe, was at 6.1%, but we can confirm that when it comes in. I think the number you saw was a little bit behind. It was actually 19.1, I think was the total number. So we can figure those numbers out. Slightly higher increase, but that was run through the AGM, and that approval will be coming next month.
Back to you, Ms. Pope.
Thank you. We're going to start the presentation and end the presentation with this particular slide, and it's intentional just to keep us reminded that if anyone has pre-read the report in the public, that we are definitely not asking for a 10% increase with council. We are asking to review today the first draft budget presentation so that council can provide direction on projects to be removed, added, or modified during our budget discussions. And so that we can come back at the next meeting in January to with a municipal tax rate that is feasible, that we can present then all the final numbers. As a reminder, we are going through the budget process, and we have used all the actuals to date that were available at the time of this report. That included up to October 31st. Next slide, please. This budget does not include any changes to any service levels that the municipality currently provides that would require a motion of council and direction to do so. All the 2025 actuals do include up to October 31st. There are still some adjustments. There are a number of capital items that do come in at the end of the year with invoicing. So not all actuals, just to keep in mind, are necessarily exact up to date, but they're as best we could give you at the time of this report. We are estimating in 2025 potentially a $250,000 surplus to be carried forward to offset the tax rate in 2026, and that has been included in the calculations here to date. We have received from MPAC the roll total, and therefore using the roll total provided, we are estimating another $124,000 in revenue for every 1% municipal residential tax rate increase. Next slide, please. We are fortunate in this municipality to have continued to have a strong collaboration between both our council and staff. This budget does not come together with a team of one. It is a team of all, from the coding of invoices through to recognizing the project's efficiency and then review by the management team when we come to a budget at the end of every year, we sit around the table and discuss our projects, discuss where we've come from, what we can and cannot do. I have heard at times budgets are referred to as a wish list. We want to make sure that we bring forward all the asset management plan criteria and items so that council can make an informed decision when there are cuts to be made, and so that you can make the decision as to which ones are to be cut and which ones are to remain on the table. Our mission statement is that the Township of Cabmonaghan is committed to delivering responsive and cost-effective services that provide for the economic, social, and environmental well-being of our ratepayers now and into the future. Next slide, please. In our corporate strategic plan, our vision statement is that Cabmonaghan is a strong, sustainable rural community. We celebrate, protect, and promote our unique history and natural heritage, and we value the contribution and interests of all ratepayers in building a prosperous future. Next slide, please. Budget basics. We've reviewed this slide before with council, and this is more for the public. However, annually, we do revisit the municipal budget. This is a process that starts when we set the timetable in June and carried throughout the year between meetings internally, then with the budget committee, and now before you here today. During the development, council has the flexibility for reallocating or reprioritizing any funds between programs and services that address emerging issues. Council, we have before you today a difficult decision. However, we do have to have a balanced budget, as that is a requirement under the Municipal Act. We are prohibited from running a deficit on any operating expenditures, and the municipality may borrow funds and incur any debt for capital projects, and we are subject to the province's annual repayment limit. Next slide, please. The 5-step process: we develop our guidelines, set our timetable, develop the draft budget, present it to you. So we are at step number 4 here today. And then we will again be before you in January for another review with a public evening meeting, and then a final hopeful approved budget at the first meeting in February. Next slide, please. It was a pleasure to have Sarah back again. Sarah is our representative that we work with on a regular basis. She has gone over most of some of the municipal, the current value assessments, and talked about the Municipal Act. I'll touch on it over a couple of few slides, but I won't go into detail as she's done a concise review this morning. So the Government of Ontario, they established the province's assessment and taxation laws and determine the education tax rate. MPAC determines all the property assessments for the properties in Ontario. We, the municipality, determine the revenue requirements. We set the municipal tax rate, and we collect the property taxes to pay for municipal services. As a reminder, the municipality levies the education, and the county levies as well. We collect those for them and then remit those revenue dollars back to them. And the property owners, they pay the property taxes for which services in the community are available. They also pay the education taxes and fund the elementary and secondary schools within Ontario. Next slide, please. So the video that was shown earlier is one, as Sarah mentioned, on the MPAC website, which is a great one for just explaining property taxes. When there is a reassessment and the province does release that, there will be quite a bit of education and myth busting, if I can say that, because people have the assumption that if their property triples, that somehow their property tax will triple. I can tell you that that is not the case. If the denominator changes, then like the illustration provided earlier, your tax rate would have to go down if everything else remained the same. So we'll have to wait and see what that looks like and how they're going to communicate that. But that was a great review. And if anyone is asking about that, it's a great video to direct them to. Next slide, please. In Cabmonaghan, obviously, we are the lower tier. Our upper tier is the Peterborough County, and it is made up of 8 lower tier municipalities. In our township, as a lower tier, we use our property taxes to fund a wide range of local services, including our emergency services, both fire and police, animal control, building and bylaw enforcement, economic development, waste, organic collection, library services, maintenance of roads, sidewalks, snow removal, storm sewers, facilities, parks and recreation, planning, culture and heritage initiatives, property tax administration, licensing, and community programs such as day camps, programs, and events. The MPAC assessment, everyone wants to know when that's going to release, and I heard the questions this morning. I too want to know when that will be. We don't know yet. They're still under review. Therefore, it is based on the fully phased in January 1st, 2016 current value assessments. There is a myth that MPAC has done nothing since 2016 or hasn't done any valuation upgrades. That's not true, because the previous four-year program, they went out and did their assessment, had their values at 2016, and took the next 4 years to implement them from 2017, 18, 19, and 20. So really 2021 is the first time we didn't have new information to roll out that next four-year program. So we're not as far back to 2016 if they had continued the program back in 2021. Property assessments remain the same, and therefore we are using the current value assessment. We do have a median current value assessment with a 2016 value of approximately 400,000. That is not a guarantee. It's just a median average. Next slide, please. So just in talking about the old phase-in cycle, if they were to continue to release the same on the next review, it's over a four-year period. So therefore, this example is saying if you had a $400,000 assessment told to you, and say previously you were assessed at $250,000, over the next 4 years, they would have to increase by that $150,000. So they don't do that all in the first year. In the first year, they do give, if there is a reduction, they give you everything in the first year. However, if there's an increase, they had taken a 4-year approach. So basically that 150,000 divided over the 4 years is 37,500 each year. And you can see there in the little illustration on the left of the screen where you're just increasing by that 37,500 each year. Next slide, please. The OMPF this year has been released to us. The amount, our allocation will be $633,200. That is included in this draft budget for you. It's always applied to the operating budget across the board, and therefore it has been applied in this budget. We took a look at the last 5 years, and approximately we've risen on average $28,250 per year over the last 5 years. And this is just an example. The OMPF funds are used to reduce the operating costs and minimize the impact on the municipal property tax rate. Next slide, please. This is a little bit of our report card. We know that back in 2012 and 2013, even before there was any changes with OLG, this municipality was forward thinking and looking at what potentially could happen if those funds were removed. And we hit significant milestones in 2013 and 2015 when we were able to remove the dependency on OLG in our operating and capital budgets. We continue to prioritize because asset replacement reserve at that time, the first transaction that went in was $200,000. It was relatively small. We've been growing that every year, and we have a program in place that council reviews. And we did initially had applied OLG revenues towards that, and that has been removed since 2016, and it's fully within the property tax rate. So those are great milestone achievements. We continue to do our best to move forward, but there's often the myth that this municipality relies on the OLG, and that is a myth. That's not fact. The truth is that since 2013, we haven't needed it for the operating budget, and since 2015, we have not needed it against the capital budget, and since 2016, we have not needed it for any asset replacement reserve. So congratulations to council and all the staff for working hard on that. For 2026, in this budget, we have approximately $3.2 million, representing 100% of the consolidated depreciation for the municipality. Depreciation is basically an estimate of the use of the assets that we have in place based on their historical cost. And so that's in this budget for council's consideration. The notice that we had received from OLG regarding the conclusion of their program was to conclude on March 31st, 2026, and the letter had indicated that we would receive an additional year of funding. So based on those estimates alone, because their year end is always March, so we don't know the full value, but based on last year's up to March of 2025, looking at the $2.4 million debenture that we had been carrying and using the OLG funds to pay down, we potentially by March 31st, 2027 might have an unfunded debt of $367,000. However, that's possible to change. Next slide, please. This is just a quick overview of the reserves and the reserves funds, how they work. They are funds that are set aside as part of the annual budget. They make sure that the municipality can weather the storm and sustain critical infrastructure over the long term without significant fluctuations to the tax rate. If we didn't set aside reserves at all, there'd be huge fluctuations in the years in which certain capital projects would have to be done. So this is pre-planning. There are reserves that are established by the council or by province, and they are established through municipal bylaws. And there is a strategy for certain programs and projects, and reserves are often a strategy that's used to fund those over those years. Next slide, please. We have flexible or committed funds, and they can be obligatory or discretionary. When we receive funds through grants, they're obligatory. They're the requirement that we spend on the projects that we've applied to when they're application based. Some of our funds are obligatory where they only are applicable for certain programs when they are allocated. So that's on the reserve part report. We do highlight which category they fit into, so it's clear when we're having those discussions, and they are tools for long-term financial sustainability. On December 1st, the 2024 audit and financial statements were presented by the auditors, and at the same date, the updated reserve and reserve report with DCs was also provided to council. Next slide, please. We use reserves for their intended purpose. In case of an emergency, user rates can remain relatively stable and taxpayers are not burdened by significant increase. The funds are saved for major capital projects, and we continue long-term financial sustainability. If reserves are used for unintended purposes, which is not what we do at this municipality, adequate funds may not be available to cover emergency, property taxes may need to increase, lack of funds to maintain a state of good repair, and a funding gap for projects. However, that's not how we operate here. The updated annual repayment limit is provided to the municipality annually at the beginning of the year after the previous year has closed. So this is the most recent one that we have received. And basically, we are permitted to be in debt annually for up to $3.7 million. We are not. However, that's what we're allowed to be. It's based on 25% of our net revenues for the municipality. And with our water, wastewater, external debt that we currently have, we were sitting at about 13%. So the budget committee, which is comprised of the mayor, the CIO, and myself, and senior staff, we review the preliminary budget and try to tighten wherever we can before we come before council. This report before council is showing you 10.28% tax rate for further discussion and direction, with no intention of going forward with 10.28. I have provided a tax percentage alternatives. If we wanted to reach down further, you would have to cut $251,300 in order to meet a 7% tax rate, or you'd have to cut $747,300 in order to reach a 3% tax increase. By no means am I suggesting what the tax rate should be. This is just for illustration purposes as we continue our discussion today. And as a reminder, every 1% of municipal tax rate increase equals an additional $124,000 in revenue. Looking at the tax bill, if no one has a home that's valued at $100,000, that would be ridiculous. But for comparison purposes, that's what municipalities use, so that you can take your home. If it's $400,000, you can multiply that rate by 4 as an estimate. So that's the reason why I'm bringing up the 1% increase on $100,000 of assessment would be approximately $7.76 additional that the taxpayer would have to pay. If it was a $400,000, it's approximately $31.04. And we continue to use 2016 values. The tax levy comparison chart is a chart that I provide annually to council, just showing you the last 5 years and the changes that have been made. The increase in the CBA from the weighted assessment, if you look between 2025 and 2026, is approximately 2.4%. So that's the growth of the roll. And primarily because we're not going out and doing reassessments and across the province, that's primarily additions. Someone is adding to their home. They're perhaps adding a garage. If there's new builds, this is additions. Now, of course, is incorporated in there is if there's any subs or omits and there are changes in credits that have been applied or reductions, it would all be included in that number. So overall, the net result is approximately 2.4%. Next slide, please. Couple of key indicators in our budget that we highlight every year. We talk about the consumer price index of 1.9%. We use the 12 months to August annually. It's a full year so that we can put together the documents for the budget and, with the September notice. The union, we do have new collective agreements, which were renewed in May of 2025, and those wage increases are included in this budget as well. The construction price index for Q3 is not known at this time. However, residential construction costs have rose 3.7% and non-res at 4%. So as a placeholder, that information is available to us. Just as a note, the U.S. tariffs have further increased the costs for Ontario municipalities by driving up prices for imported steel, equipment, and materials used in infrastructure projects. And on December 1st, Council did approve the user fees and charges bylaw, and this ensures that municipal revenues for services reduce the impact of the cost of the service on the municipal property tax rate. Next slide, please. Again, I am not proposing a 3% increase. This is an example. It's highlighted there at the very top, but it's basically saying that if we were to go ahead, because we have a number of different tax classes, I'm just giving you an example of where we might end up. So in 2025, if we did the 3% from 2025 to 2026 would result in $23.27 per $100,000. Next slide, please. The budget summary. You'll notice in the center there's a highlight yellow. That's intentional. That's the 2026 reduction from this 10.28 because we need to do that in order for this to balance and go less than. However, if we did have to levy that 10.28% at the bottom of the screen, you'll see there that that would mean the general tax levy would have to be $13.6 million. Again, this is just bringing everything together. It's to be determined, and it's just an information piece at this time until we have more information. So the operating budget, it reflects a consolidated departmental increase of 5.8%. You'll see in the report that's summarized, and I'll show you that on the next screen. And primarily there has been some adjustments across all departments, including alignment of staff wages, increasing all the 2026 rates for source deductions and benefit rates. And we've increased it 2% to hydro, gas, fuel, telecommunication services in general, just in this draft at this time, just to estimate for where we think we might be. The next page provides the summary page, which is each department side by side with the variance. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is where I'm talking about the 5.8% and the first subtotal under consolidated department net changes. There are some other that are outside of our control, be it that they're listed down below, and there's an overall across the board of 5.9% in the tax levy. And then if you look at water, wastewater included in that, if you look at all of it, we're about 6.7%. However, each department internally, that's the 5.8% that I'm referring to here. And this is just a summary of all the detailed pages that Council has before them in their binder today. The environmental tax rate is expected to increase by 1.2%, which is approximately 32 cents for every 100,000 of property assessment. That's as per to date with the number of changes that have happened in there, including the CMO for the blue box recycling as well at the transfer station. And water and wastewater, the rate is not being set through this process. That's set through the user fees and charges bylaw for the water wastewater. And so therefore we use the annual budget that's in that document to set what we have as the budget for 2026 and moving forward. As a reminder, this does not affect property taxes. Next slide, please. I'm just going to pause here for a moment because we're going to move into capital. But at this time, we have a report on what's happening over at the CMCC and with our Parks and Rec department.
Mr. Allison, over to you.
Sorry, little power issue there. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have a little snapshot here of some of the programming and offerings we have at the CMCC. We'll start with the growth of camp programs at the CMCC. Since introducing our camp programs in 2023, we have increased the amount of weeks offered, total capacity, and have seen an increase of 145% in attendance. In summer camp 2025, we extended camp by 1 week and doubled the capacity for our younger age campers, 4 to 6 years old. It still had an average of 4 campers on the wait list for each week. We also provide camp opportunities during PA days and the March break. If we look at the first graph, we can see 2023, we had a capacity of 72 campers we could hold. We moved that up to 156 in 2025. The number of weeks, we began at 4 weeks and we moved up to 6 weeks now. The total campers registered, we began with 58 and we are now at 142. Next slide, please. Growth of facility spaces, summer ice, sponsored skates and studio hours. Since 2022, we have booked an additional 150 hours during our summer ice and now host a high performance hockey camp as well as offer more public skates to the public. Our hockey camp sees elite players from all over Ontario traveling to a 7-week hockey program where you'll see everything from younger ages right up to OHL players, NHL drafts, and we do have NHL players that attend this camp as well. Since 2023, we have introduced sponsored skates. Each sponsored skate brings in an average of 120 skaters, and with 17 sponsored skates planned for the holiday season this year, we expect to see around 2,000 skaters at the CMCC in December. Since 2023, the use of our fitness studio has increased by 53%, with half of the users providing programs for the community, such as fitness classes and community clubs. Next slide, please. Growth of free public events at the CMCC. Since the reintroduction of public events in winter of 2022, after our COVID closures, we've seen a steady increase in the attendance. Free public events bring in families from the township of Cabot-Monaghan, as well as surrounding areas, and have become a family staple for the holiday planning. If we look at our Family Day event, we went from 180 to 300 attendees. Canada Day event has gone from 280 to 600. Our holiday Christmas event, excluding this year, so it's gone from 300 to 520, and we're hoping to have more this year. Our Halloween event started at 36 and we've gone up to 250 this year. Next slide, please. So with our growth of community programs, we partner with community organization and not-for-profits. Community care, we currently providing facility space for 3 programs. We have a fitness program, Zumba Gold, delivered in the studio. Social and well-being program, walking and coffee social, delivered in the overlook room and the walking track. They provide balance assessment clinics delivered in the community hall. Staff are currently working with community care to relocate and deliver more services out of the CMCC facilities in 2026. We have Friendship Force, which delivers a weekly program for 4 hours to individuals with different abilities who are 18 plus within the community of Millbrook and surrounding areas. The Old Millbrook School Early On Child and Family Center currently delivers a weekly 1-hour program in the community hall called Music and Movement. The Parks and Facilities Department also provides additional support for many of our community events, such as Harvest Table, Cabot-Monaghan Derby, BIA events, and other large events throughout the community. Thank you.
Thank you for that summary, Chris. It's great to see the growth in the utilization and working with all the partner agencies too. That's excellent. So back to you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to all of council, we're moving into the capital budget overview. Once we complete this section, then we'll open it up for then the discussion amongst departments, but I'll just quickly do a highlight summary at this point. So we do have our 10-year capital plans. As you know, we've been migrating to Public Sector Digest. We have all that data in there, which is fantastic. It's a cycle now. So what comes out of there then is a reminder of what needs to be replaced. And then we take a look at all those projects, and then it goes back in at the end, what's approved by council through this process, then to see what happens for next year and going forward. We're excited as well because we're moving towards a new module for budgeting and hope to have some real live data to be able to provide to you through the budgeting meetings in next year. So that's a project that we're working on, but we'll get there. Unlike the operating budget, which is addresses our day-to-day expenses, the capital budget focuses on projects that provide benefits over multiple years, such as road reconstruction, water, wastewater systems upgrades, facility improvements, and fleet replacements. We use funding sources on our reserve sheet. You'll see that, and then also on our capital sheet from reserves, development charges, grants, and also debt financing with priorities guided by our asset management plan and the corporate strategic plan objectives. Next slide, please. This is just a summary snapshot of all the projects. So the total projects, there's $15.8 million worth of projects. We have roughly at this time, of course, more invoices are coming in, but at this time, about $854,000 of rollover funds coming into the year. We have some future approvals because we have some grants on the table as well. So we're about $11.7 million with capital expenditure funding. We have asset replacement reserve funding we're able to pull down. So not just putting money into an asset replacement, but we take it out when we need it as well. So that's a little over $1 million. We have reserves and other funding of $5.8 million, and then a grant pending for $50,000. So the net capital expenditure is $4.8 million. But even in looking at that, the asset replacement reserve funding that we're requesting at 100% is that $3.2 million. And therefore, the other capital ask from the municipal tax levy is the $1.5 million, adding to that 4.8. Next slide, please. This is an overview summary of the first 4 departments just listed in no particular order. With the CAO and ECD development, there's an ask overall as a reminder to council that when we look at any of our capital request pages, on the left, the very first column, requested purchase, that's the actual cost. The next 4 to 5 items or columns indicate where we're trying to fund it from so that we don't have to hit the property tax base. When you end up at the adjusted total, that's the amount that we've included within the cost, so that that's the portion that affects the property tax rate. So for the CAO and ECD, it's $2,257 included in the tax rate. For finance, there's $3.2 million, but most of that, or all of it, is the asset management reserve transfer. Information technology is looking for $22,000. Planning and building is looking for $71,000. Next slide, please. Parks and facilities is looking for $547,000. Next slide, please. Protective services is looking for $211,000, and then roads, $670,000. We'll review those in more detail with each of the departments. We do have some grants that are under programs, whether they're Ontario or federal infrastructure programs that have been approved. So we're just highlighting them here. You've seen the number one, the ICIP for both previously it was under the Millbrook Arena, and then we had a scope change received in August of this year, and then the rehabilitation of the old Millbrook School. So they're still available and there and showing up on our capital as well. We have a housing-enabled core services stream. We receive funding for that, and a housing-enabled water system fund, and we received approval for that. So those are 2 other approved projects that are also available to this municipality that we are working on and are included in the budget. Grant applications that are pending or unknown at this time, we have a total of 2. Health and Safety Water Stream and the Community Emergency Preparedness Grant. So once we have more information, we can bring that forward, but those are 2 that are pending. The next slide is the water wastewater capital request. Again, just showing the difference between water and wastewater. All of this, however, is funded through the user fees. What's not spent goes back into the water and wastewater reserves and then comes back out. And that's not affecting the property tax base. Just noted here in the reports, because we have our new strategic plan, that the annual budget is developed to advance the priorities outlined in the Cab Monaghan strategic plan. All budget allocations support financial sustainability through responsible fiscal management and asset renewal, community vitality by funding recreation and cultural initiatives, economic development through investments in infrastructure that enable growth and attract business. Additionally, the budget incorporates measures for environmental sustainability and community engagement, ensuring that financial decisions reflect long-term goals for a resilient, vibrant, and inclusive community. Therefore, I bring you back to the very beginning of the report, and that today we're hoping that you receive the report and provide direction on the projects to be removed, added, or modified during our discussion so that we can select a municipal tax rate for the next draft of the operating and capital budgets.
Thank you, Ms. Pope, for that high-level summary, and we'll set us up for a thorough conversation. Just so council's aware, I think lunch is showing up in the next 5 to 10 minutes. But if anyone has 5 or 10 minutes of generic questions before we get into the nitty-gritty, and the only other thing to just mention as well, with regards to the operational budget, those numbers don't reflect the library reductions that we alluded to earlier. So that will, on the total levy, like I said, it's about 1.46 or 1.5%. So just that will be updated in the version 2 as well. So questions? Yeah, Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair to Kimberly, it's always mentioned in the impact, and you mentioned it here today about if nothing changes, a high increase in your current value assessment won't change your tax base. The last 15 years, I haven't seen any time when it hasn't changed. There's always been an ask. Well, what I'm wondering about the 4-year implementation, if sometime down the future, the Ontario government ever allows them to release that data, is it guaranteed that the phase-in will be over a period of time? Is the 4 years guaranteed? Or is it theoretically possible that we've been lagging so long that won't happen?
So I can speak to that one, Ms. Pope, and then maybe you can fill in. So at the various conferences we've been at over the last, since the years it's been frozen, which has been my entire time here, there is no provincial insight as to how they're potentially ever going to do it again. So there's no commitment to a timeline. There's no commitment to adjusting a phasing in strategy. There's zero conversation and details about when, how, or what it will ever occur. And municipalities have been asking again and again, because as you mentioned, what the pressure becomes on the levy. The levy is now having to make up the difference from what would traditionally be somewhat covered on the increased value of properties. So that's why, it's not municipalities everywhere all of a sudden have forgotten how to do accounting. Or since we've been pegged to this 2016 rate across the province, you're seeing higher and higher levels of municipal tax levy percentage increases because they're not offset by the increase in property values that would otherwise. It's the same money's coming out of the same coffers, except we have to generate it through the pressure on the levy versus what would the value increase that would be phased in over a traditional 4-year period would do it for itself. So that's sort of the catalyst why you're seeing a historical, sort of backlog or levy increase, because that's the only place that's increasing now when you're stuck at 2016 values. But we keep asking the question. I make sure to go to that impact lunch every time we go to Roma, and there's yet to be any details or any dates or any proposal as to how they're going to manage it. Anything new on your end, Ms. Pope, from a staff standpoint?
I definitely don't have any insight into that. That's up to the province and what they're going to do. And because they're doing a review, that would make me even feel like they're taking a look at what worked, what didn't work, and we'll be coming out with a new strategy. So there's nothing that tells us it's going to be the same as what it was before, but nothing that tells us it won't be the same as what it was before. So I can't speak to that. But what I can say is that if everything remained the same, and there was never an increase at all, and all it was is that every single property doubled, our tax rate would have to go to half, right? And you'd pay the same amount. That's what that whole video is about. It's not, so it's the myth that, oh, my property has doubled, now I'm paying double in taxes. That's not truthful. So when you're communicating and you're having those conversations, if it can just be simplified to that, is that if everything else stayed the same and your property doubled, the municipal tax rate, assuming everything else the same, would have to go to half, right? So it's very difficult to communicate. They're going to have difficulty communicating. There'll be a huge launch. I am certain of that on how they're going to communicate this, just to put everyone at ease, because I think the same myth exists and it keeps rotating out there and people are confused.
If it ever changes. Other sort of high level questions before we break for lunch, anybody? Seeing none, okay, I think we're about 5 minutes early, but I think it just makes sense to have a break now, and then we can come back with our thorough analysis and conversations about the capital budget after lunch. So we'll just take a brief recess, probably 30 minutes, maybe 40 at the most. I have a call I gotta make as well, so we will reconvene after that, after lunch. Thank you.